The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for today's webcast with Active Countermeasures, getting hired as a threat hunter. We are so excited to have you all here with us today. If you haven't already joined us in the Threat Hunter Community Discord, please do so now. That's where all the chat and QA for today is going to take place. I've gone ahead and shared the link to our Discord server in the GoToWebinar chat for everybody, and we have a ton of channels in there that you can check out. A lot of them are around different open source tools. But if you go down near the bottom of the server, you'll find an Active Countermeasures section. And right now we are in the live webcast chat channel. It's the one with the red dot next to it. And directly under that, you'll see ACM webcast content, where you can find the PDF of today's slide deck.
Hey, so that must mean we're live and we're chatting.
Yes, it does.
Absolutely.
Afternoon.
So it's kind of funny, Shelby, when you said the title of this talk, it sounded like to me, it sounded like you said getting fired as a threat hunter. We could do that as a follow-up.
Yep. That's about a 20-second webcast.
Yes. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on the environment. Sometimes it might take just a little bit longer than that. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the easiest thing you've done today.
Oh.
Well, for anybody who is joining us for their first time, thank you so much for being here. I also want to make sure you know that this is not the actual webcast quite yet. This is what we like to call pre-show banter. It's just a great time for you to get to know us a little better and us to get to know the community a little better. The actual webcast will begin in about 23 minutes from now. But until then, you can hang out with us and listen to us chat.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've got a bunch of projects going on, and I'm sure Shelby will be mentioning this once more before we finish up, but I'm going to be giving a talk in January on packet filtering using BPF, which is the standard language that basically all sniffers use, all sniffers and packet capture tools use. So last night I was up until probably midnight trying to figure out why I could not get a filter working on IPv6, and finally found it as the last line of what's probably a 15-page TCP dump manual saying, oh, by the way, this doesn't work in IPv6. Thanks. So glad you told me. I had to read all the way down to the bottom before you finally said, that doesn't work. Sorry, bye. So lots to cover in that one, and plenty of time for questions too, if you want to talk about how BPF works and how to do filtering of packets that come up for packet capture and analysis.
So another webcast idea we may want to do at some point is how to translate our lingo to non-technical people.
Yeah.
So I'm engaged to someone who is definitely not a techie, and was mentioning yesterday that, we're going to be traveling about the same time Bill and his wife are going to be traveling, and we're going to end up in the same kind of tropical location at the same time, so we'll have to hang out. And I made the statement to her, yeah, I'll have to type 8 Bill before that. And she was like, what? Which, of course, I'm thinking Bill Stern, so I immediately fall into our common lingo, which is, you don't say you ping somebody, you type 8 them, because, that's the type code for an echo request. But, also had to describe what dev null meant and why it meant what it meant to her at some point. So it might be, even if we don't do a webcast, maybe just a guide. Here are all the things you have to translate for the actual normal people, because they will not understand you.
Yeah.
This is where you train a little electric shock unit on your wrist, where if you ever talk in an acronym, it gives you a 3,000 volt shock just for a fraction of a second, and pretty soon you will never use another acronym again in your life.
That's awesome.
I went out to dinner at a conference at one point with one of the people with whom I was a sysadmin, and it was down in that area. His wife came along, and we just went out. And of course, with two geeks there, we immediately launch into some, packet capture topic or something terribly geeky. And I think it was probably about 5 minutes into the conversation, I turned to the gentleman's wife and I said, I'm really sorry about this because I do understand this is not your favorite topic. How do you deal with two geeks talking with each other? And she said, oh, no problem. Every time I go out to dinner with one of you guys, the food is excellent. I just eat. This is great.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, I just think back of like having dinner with Marty Resch one night with his wife, having a couple of SAND students show up to go with us, having them like, talk to his wife and say, oh, we're not worthy, and, Marty's awesome, and, thank you for letting him develop Snort, and, them not really thinking about, so what is Snort from the wife's perspective? Well, it's that damn piece of code that keeps him in the back room, which is the reason we never go away on the weekend and can never do anything else because he's always writing the damn code. So she just looked him right in the eye and said, Snort sucks. To which, okay, so what do you do? Because normally that would have been fighting words, but this is Marty's wife. So, and hey, we got a banjo crash.
Hey, welcome.
Hey, everybody. Hello. Hey, how's it
How
going?
goes it, dude?
You got the Christmas theme up behind you. That's cool.
It's been around for a while, Bill.
I know. I feel terrible.
It started weeks ago and way before Thanksgiving, and that's fine.
Yeah, that's kind of breaking convention. Isn't Thanksgiving the tipping point, right? That's where you're supposed to like break out all the stuff.
Yeah, except what we've learned as a family, my wife and I, is that the best way to do Christmas is in chunks. Because we used to try to do Christmas all in one day. We'd cut down the tree, we'd decorate the house, we'd do the outside, like all of it. And by the middle of the day, I just wanted to chuck the tree out the front door and just tell everyone Christmas was canceled. And so now we do it in chunks. It's nice.
Nice.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Well, then you get to enjoy it longer too. So.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which,
and
by
then
the way,
people
Shelby, Saturday is the Festival of Lights in downtown Cape Coral. We definitely got to hit that Saturday too.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
It'll, yeah, that way Sophia will get to see snow for the first time in her life.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah, I love, if you don't know, we live in Florida. So we do not get real snow down here.
Florida.
But we do have for example, our town does an event every year where they'll set up like a snow slide for the kids. That's basically, shaved ice kind of thing. They set it up.
Yeah, about 6 feet tall. It's about a half a second ride for them, but they love it.
Right. And I think it's really funny. They love to call it real snow, even though it's just like from an ice machine.
Yeah.
So, it's not like they shipped it down from up north or anything, but still.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Another
I
thing
like how it
about
just creates like a huge
snow
river
is
down the whole
behind
road.
a like it's some sort of wild animal you have to be afraid of. So the snow stays inside a caged area.
Yes.
Oh,
Yep.
my. You don't want to let that stuff out, I tell you.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
actually do put it behind a fence. It's like a chain link fence goes all right there.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
you need a key card to get in, and yeah.
Yeah, it's like, don't let it touch your skin.
it burns.
Yeah, it burns.
I like this
And-
comment. I just caught myself staring at the thingy in the background of the camera like a solid 30 seconds. Must know where to get one. Well, that could be a lot of things. That could be like Shelby's ears or the creepy little doll behind her.
It's the creepy
It could
doll.
be like
for sure.
Keith's cat in a cat suit or in a space suit.
Yeah. Could be the thing over your head, Chris, the spinning thing, the orb.
Oh, that's just me thinking.
Oh.
If that
Yep.
stops, I'm not thinking anymore. So.
That's a free one, Keith. Go for it. Come on.
I know. I saw that as a perfect opening and I had nothing. It was too open. It was just too open.
Oh, man.
And we had someone say happy first day of Advent calendar. So anyone who is doing those, don't forget to eat your first piece of chocolate today or whatever other kind of Advent calendar you have. I know that nowadays there's like one for dogs, one for cats, one with socks, one with makeup. So someone also, though, Robin suggested that ACM do an Advent calendar. And Jason, maybe that's something that we have to put together as a John Strand family company thing next year.
So first we start a cocoa bean plantation.
Yes.
And
Down in
then,
Brazil.
yes, and then as we cultivate our own beans, and then we can work out, some kind of roastery for them, and then we can start a candy bar company. And then, yes, yeah, the
Wow.
Advent calendar.
Wow.
December
Ground up.
1st, lima bean. December 2nd, has been.
Yeah. Yeah, mine's the vegetarian version. Today I opened the little door and it was a sprig of broccoli.
Love it.
So it's
That's
kind of
sad.
funny. My mom sends down enough advent calendars for like everybody we know down here, and we hand those out. And there was one year, we gave one to Keith, we gave one to Keith's wife, Chris, and the next morning she posted a photo that said "damn cats," and it had all the doors open in the advent calendar with all the
Oh.
chocolate missing. And
Oh.
my mother was like, "Oh my God, is the cat okay?" It's like, no, was it really a cat?
Are cats hit the same way with chocolate as dogs?
Yeah. Cats did not eat
Probably.
chocolate.
One of our dogs ate my daughter's entire Easter basket while we were at church. All the candy,
Oh,
all
boy.
the chocolate, all the everything. And
Wow.
my daughter's like, "Is he gonna die?" And I was like, I really don't know. Like
Yeah.
thankfully he was 110 pounds, so he was a big dog and he didn't eat enough for it to kill him. But he was pooping out wrappers for the next 4 days.
Oh, man.
Lord, yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say what was coming out behind that dog for the next few days was not biodegradable.
So this is not the webcast, right? The webcast begins in 13 minutes.
Yeah,
Yes,
we
if you
changed
have-
the topic.
If you have not joined us for a webcast before, then you might not know this, but this is not the actual webcast yet. This is what we like to call pre-show banter. It's a great time for us to get to know you guys better and you get to know us better. If you haven't already joined us on Discord, I would definitely recommend doing so now. I just went ahead and shared the link in the GoToWebinar chat for everybody. We are in the live webcast chat channel, which is the one with the little red dot next to it. And directly under that is the ACM webcast content where you can find the slide deck for today. And
Oh, that's awesome.
I like the slide change there, Chris.
Yeah.
Very suave, Chris. Very
Just so
suave.
we're clear, yeah.
Sweet.
Chris, Mary Ellen is
dog.
also saying, Chris, you still like wrecking cars? I don't think you ever liked wrecking them necessarily, but
So Mary Ellen, long time no talk to. Hope you're doing well. And yeah, Shelby said, well, so it depends, because when I was doing military training, part of the fun of that was you did get to wreck cars. So when I was teaching rally students, you might like chase them down the road, but the idea was just to pass them. When it was military folks, you could actually come up behind them and tap the back quarter on the car so that they spin out, and that was always fun. Live fire was always fun too. So I guess I did do a little bit of wrecking cars, but it was all in good fun, so it was all good. But no, I don't do that anymore. Everything down here in Florida is like flat, and yeah, it's just that takes a lot of the fun out of it. So
Yeah, very few curves in Southwest Florida. So
yeah, not to mention, so one of the students we had come through was Travis Pastrada, and I remember a couple of the other instructors were chatting with him, saying, "Hey, so you're like this amazing motorcycle person. Why would you want to get into rally?" And his response was, "With age comes the cage." And I can definitely relate to that, but I would also say with a little bit more age, yeah, even having the cage, everything ends up painful for a long period of time. So
Fair
yes.
enough.
And I noticed we had the deputy joining us in the background today. She posted it on Discord a couple times. So shout out to Velda, the deputy, real quick.
Hey.
If you don't know
Hey,
who
Velda.
that is, we have sister companies at Active Countermeasures, two of which are Wild West Hacking Fest and Antisyphon Training. Velda helps to run both of those. And we actually have an event coming up in the first week of May of 2022, Way West Hackin' Fest, and that's going to be in San Diego, California. So I'm just going to share the link in Discord for everybody in case you're interested in joining us there. We've got a lot of fun stuff planned. I don't want to give too much away, but the theme is going to be you hacked my battleship. So really excited for
Awesome.
that.
And hopefully we don't have like a Zeta variant of COVID-19 by then that we're
Right.
still worried about. So
Yeah, I know we're planning to do the in-person pretty much no matter what. So even if we all have to be masked up or whatever the case may be, we will be in San Diego.
If you've ever seen those things where you rent for about 15 minutes, these massive bubbles that you crawl into and then try to run around, that's how we're going to be holding the conference. Only the instructor gets to get out for about 3 seconds while he talks, but then he has to get back. She has to get right back in.
Yeah, I was just thinking of the, I think it was in the 70s, a movie, The Boy in the Bubble. Does anybody remember that?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh
So
my
you're
God.
just as old as I am, man.
Bubble
So-
Boy.
Yep. But far better was the remake on the Seinfeld episode with the Bubble
Yeah.
Boy.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
moops.
we all need suits like that. So
Yeah.
Yes.
It was the moops.
the moops.
Hey, so we've got about 10 minutes before we're going to get started on the webcast. And the webcast today is going to be about getting hired as a threat hunter.
Yes.
But one of the folks that I know that has done like a lot of really good community service around helping folks find jobs is Mr. Jason, which is why he's here today. And I asked him to come in and just kind of like talk about all the stuff he's doing, because I have trouble keeping up with like there's YouTube videos, there's LinkedIn stuff, there's Twitch streams. So
Yeah.
Jason, I'd love you to be able to talk a little bit about the community support you've been building around helping folks find security jobs.
Sure. So when the pandemic started, like March of last year, my wife and I were trying to figure out like what we could do to help, and we couldn't make masks. Like I don't know how to sew, but I had helped hundreds of people find jobs in the film industry. And in the film industry, what we did is when I was a teacher, I didn't know what it was called at the time, but it was open source intelligence gathering. We were using OSINT to track down people who worked in the film industry, to contact them, to introduce ourselves, to do that. And so when I took a look at how hackers do what hackers do to break into companies, I was like, wait a second, like reconnaissance and open source intelligence gathering, create them custom tailored, like all the things that work to break into a company also work to break into a company. And so like
Yes.
same methodology, the same thoughts. I was like, wait a second. So I gave a talk at DerbyCon a couple years ago on how to social engineer your way into your dream job. And the room was packed, it was full of people, and I was like, oh, I guess there's a lot of people who want to get new jobs. And then the video got seen like 25,000 times, and I was like, oh, well, it got shared, that was nice. So when we launched in March of last year, we just started doing a Twitch live stream, and we just showed up and we said, here's the methodology of job hunting. Here's how you go from step one. Step one is to find a job to apply for, and there's a couple different strategies to do that. Step number two is to create a custom tailored resume based on the job description. So you reverse engineer the job description to figure out what to put on the resume, because the worst thing in the world is taking a blank sheet of paper and trying to describe yourself on it. Like, it sucks. So we say like, hey, here's a job description. Take a look at what they're looking for, and just explain that you are who they're looking for. Like it also works in India. And so it has worked in India. People in India have gotten jobs. People around the world have been part of the 164 viewers that have gotten jobs. Step number three is to apply at the company's website. And the reason why you apply at the company's website is because once you apply and you get entered into their HR management system, besides LinkedIn and Glassdoor and Monster and Indeed, all that stuff, go to the company's website, apply there, because you get entered into the HR management program. But the other thing is that you can start doing reconnaissance on the company while you're there. So I always take a look at the About Me section. I look at the people who work there. I then copy their names, drop it in LinkedIn. I then look at their activity feeds, because LinkedIn is the biggest tattletale of all social media platforms. It will let anyone know what you clicked on, what you liked, what you commented on, and what you shared. There's an activity feed, and if you didn't know it existed, it is gold for job hunting, because you can go find anything that you like. I call it recruiters magical job fairies, because their sole purpose in life is to give jobs to people. And once you find one magical job fairy and you take a look at their activity feed, they introduce you to all the magical job fairies and all the jobs and everything there. And you can just, well, like if you see a job that you're like, oh, I'd like to do that. You can literally comment on the job, tag the magical job fairy in the post and say, I'm currently looking at a position here. Would it be possible to talk to you for 10 to 15 minutes? And this has helped like a lot of people because it's no longer you sit back and wait for the recruiter to find you. It's more of you hunt and find that recruiter and introduce yourself. So that's step number 4, is to find the people who work there and introduce yourself. And step number 5 is to manage all the information. Because if you've never like diligently job hunt before, then what company did you hunt for, at what time, what job, who did you find, when did you contact them, when did you send your follow-up message, when did you send your final follow-up message? Like all of that stuff should be tracked by you as you're job hunting. So that's what we talk about on the live streams twice a week.
Yeah,
I love the idea that there are magical job fairies, and I'm trying to figure out if I should go out and buy some glitter now or wait till the end of the podcast.
Yeah, and definitely gone are the days where you just have one canned resume, send it out to a bunch of places, and sit back and hope something happens. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like I feel like job hunting is like a CTF. Like that's the way I look at job hunting now. It's like it's a CTF. I'm going to like, yeah. Because you find the people, you find that recruiter, you send your custom message to that person, they respond back to it. Is fun if you treat it like a CTF. If you treat it like, oh my God, I have to find a job that sucks, well, then you're going to have that experience while you're job hunting.
And it lets you tap a bunch of skills. So like you're saying, Jason, there's that red teaming / pen testing part of it that you can tap into. There's the social engineering part of it you can tap into. In a lot of ways, it's a good way to kind of round out and hone your skills within security itself.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't want to say it's fun because job hunting is not fun, but there is this element of like, I'm going to get in. When I see like 19 other applicants have already applied, I'm like, oh, it's on. Like it is on. I feel sorry for those 19 other people because they're not going to get the job. There was this one job at Spotify. It was like 883 people had applied, and I was like, I feel sorry for those 883 people because we're going to get you this job. Because you have to like think, like once you switch that mentality of like I'm going to get in, just like a hacker would, then all of a sudden like it's just a lot different when you're job hunting.
I love the idea that if you're applying to be a pen tester, your first job should be to get your resume up on the HR person's screen when they come in the morning.
Yeah.
There we go. Let me show you my skills right now.
Yeah.
Well, so it kind of is because the first pass is always a keyword search system. So it's almost like how do you evade an IDS? Is basically what you're doing.
Yep. Yeah,
Very
and
similar skills.
And I talk about how you literally take the job description, you copy and paste it, and then you go through and you find a thing that you're good at, and then swap out the bullet point for the new thing. But you're looking for keywords the whole time to make sure that you're also hitting those keywords.
Yep. And the keywords get mentioned enough in context to get picked up by the automated system, but they're also offset by white space enough so that when a human finally does get it and looks for those same keywords, they spot them very quickly.
Yeah.
So.
And there's no lying, there's no embellishing, there's no fabrication. Like you are just saying, I can do this. It's factual. It's not, it's real.
So technically you can. I mean, I've seen folks who do things like, oh, let's take the keywords they're looking for. Well, I'll add them to my resume in white text so a person won't see them and say it over and over again. That way the automated system picks up on it and spits out my resume, but the human doesn't pick up on it. Well, yeah, except they might, and if they do, you just killed your chances of getting that job.
Yeah, I've never recommended that because that's just
wow.
Well, if you think about how do you game SEO on a website, a lot of that is applicable to resume writing as well. And and again, the same way Google, if they catch you playing tricks, will pull you out of the system. The HR person, if they catch you playing tricks, will pull you out of the system as well.
Yeah.
So.
And the last thing I'll say before you guys got to get started is that if you're good at project management, then project manage your job hunt. If you're good at this, then use the skills that you already have, you already are innate with, and use them while you're job hunting. I've always said if you treat job hunting like it's your job, you get up, you work for 8 hours, you put in the time and effort, then it's going to pay off. Just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, it may sound a little weird, but a Cabana board can be one of your best friends as part of doing this. Because as Jason said, you got to keep track of who you apply to and when. You don't want to spam a company too often. A Cabana board can actually be really super helpful with that.
Hey, Jason,
right.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, Jason, do me a favor and include your a link in the chat for everybody. And I have it in the slides as well. So
Okay.
when people walk away, if you grab the slides, you'll have a link to that. If you are job hunting, I really, really recommend you tap into some of the resources Jason's made available.
Yeah. Thanks for having me here today. Good luck, Active Countermeasures. We'll see y'all next time. Bye.
Thanks, Jason.
Awesome. Thanks again,
So-
Jason. He also has a job hunter Discord server as well. So I shared the link to that in the Discord so people can join his
Awesome.
server. And I did want to mention real quick that Robin posted saying that she's actually looking to hire threat hunters located in Germany. So Robin, if you actually want to make a post in our career hunting channel, which is in the career development section of our server, that would be wonderful. But if anybody here is listening and is from Germany, Robin on Discord might be someone you want to talk to.
Yeah.
And before we get started, I do have a couple of housekeeping things I want to cover really quick. The first one is, yes, this is being recorded and you can actually watch the recording right now and as soon as this webcast is over on YouTube. So we're actually live streaming to YouTube at the moment. Ryan was kind enough to share the link in the Discord server for anybody in case you'd rather join there. If you are, however, joining us from GoToWebinar, you'll receive a certificate of attendance tomorrow afternoon for this training. Just a reminder, though, that has to be through GoToWebinar. So if you're not joining us there and you want to receive the certificate, make sure that you join us there now.
Yep.
And with
And it will be 24 hours after this ends,
yes,
not when it begins.
yes.
Because we
So
always get like 10 to 12 people saying, hey, I didn't get my certificate. Yeah, wait 20 minutes.
yeah. Yes, 3 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow, you'll receive the email containing your certificate. And if you enjoy this webcast, don't forget to check out the other upcoming stuff we have going on. As Bill mentioned earlier, we have another webcast happening the first week of January. And in January, we also have another run of our free 6-hour threat hunting course that we do. So if you're still slightly new to threat hunting and want to learn more about it, that would probably be a good training to join. Again, it's completely free. Also, don't forget to check out our sister companies and the stuff they put out as well. I know Velda had shared a link to it, so I'm going to mention it again. Tomorrow, there is a 5-hour roundup going on with Wild West Hacking Fest, and it's the Purple Team Roundup, so it's 5 hours straight of just purple teaming content. Along with that Antisyphon training, Chris does a couple different classes with them, and next week is actually his packet decoding class. So if you're really new to the threat hunting industry and want to learn more about it, you can take his packet decoding class, or he also has an advanced threat hunt training if you feel like you're ready for that as well. And I'll share the links to all the stuff that we've been talking about in Discord. And with that, Chris, I'll let you take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, so as Shelby said, thank you to our sister companies. It sometimes feels like an episode of like Little Women because John just like can't stop creating companies. So yeah, thank you. As Shelby mentioned, I've got a couple classes coming up. There's information link here if you're interested. That's also going into Discord. But today, we're here to kind of talk about threat hunting and how to get hired as a threat hunter. So quick little rundown of what we'll go through and we'll cover is part of this. And I kind of feel the need to start with the definition of threat hunting only because I still see this described incorrectly sometimes. It's kind of sad, but you know, what is this? You know, the big thing that makes threat hunting different versus anything else is it's a proactive activity. You know, this is not I'm going to assume my systems are safe because I haven't noticed an alert yet. Well, that's kind of a negative, right? You're saying, well, since it hasn't popped up in my face, it must not be true. In other words, unless I observe it, it doesn't actually exist. Oh, good, so COVID-19's fake. Yeah, that's it. No, it's a proactive activity. You're going in without making the assumption as to whether something's good or not, and you're checking everything, not just the stuff that you can install an endpoint agent on, not just the stuff that you might be able to collect some level of log entries from, but everything on the network. And the output from this is a compromise assessment. And that compromise assessment is, hey, I have actively checked all of my systems and I feel pretty confident we are currently in a safe state. There's a lot of things that threat hunting is not. But from the perspective of looking for a job, keep in mind that the person doing the hiring may not necessarily be up to the speed yet. In other words, they may want to hire a threat hunter, but part of that might include monitoring and responding to EDR alerts. So you really got to kind of read between the lines of the description to see what is it they're actually looking for. Hopefully this will get better over time. But again, this is less about what's absolutely right and interpreting whoever is posting this job, what is it that they're actually in there looking for. Why a job in threat hunting? One of the biggest reasons, this is a new discipline, right? It's not like pen testing or red teaming, where that's been around for over 20 years now. And there are seasoned people that have, had opportunities to take leadership roles within the community, and you're always kind of playing catch up when you're 20 years behind the 8 ball here. Threat hunting is pretty new. It's expected to grow like crazy. A proactive validation of the integrity state of all the systems. That's pretty huge. So yeah, I can see insurance companies jumping in on this. I can see a lot of attestations picking this up. So the need for threat hunting is only going to grow over time. One of the really cool things about it is that if you're in like a consulting role, billing rates are through the roof. Back when I used to do pen testing back over 20 years ago, I used to be able to get away with billing like $500 an hour. Today, there's so many people out there doing pen testing. You're lucky if you can bill $130, $150 an hour. Because threat hunting is new, it's back up in that $500, $600 range. So if you can get compensated more for your time, hey, why not, right? The biggest one to me is this solves what I consider to be one of the biggest problems we have in security today. That problem of when all of our layers of protections fail and the attacker gets on the network, how do we figure out we need to go in incident response mode? And right now we don't have a good fix for that. We don't have good glue to kind of hold together our protection and our response tools. Again, to me, this is huge, and it's applicable everywhere. It's not just internal environments, it's cloud, it's anything that, endpoint, it's anything that anybody happens to be running. All right, so you want to try to get hired as a threat hunter, right? But we've got this catch-22 that I hear from people a lot. I can't get hired without experience, but I can't get experience until I get hired. If you feel that way, this may not be the best role for you. The folks that will get solved 5 years down the road, and you might be able to get in then. Because it's so new, really these opportunities are open to folks that are willing to take an initiative. They're willing to go in and kind of step up and say, hey, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get the skills and to get the recognition I need to be able to kind of push through in this industry. I'll give you a great example. My first job working networking, so even before I was doing security, back doing just like IT type stuff, came from me pitching a quality control system to a major company that I was working at in a non-technical role at the time. And when they said, yeah, that looks interesting, I went out and bought myself a 5-user version of, believe it or not, NetWare 2.0. Yes, it was that long ago. Bought myself a database system. I think I ate I remember that time in my life as being a lot of macaroni and cheese with Prego sauce, which was how I finally like afforded what I needed to be able to do that stuff. But I went and I built my own home lab. I set this stuff up, got it working, made sure I kind of understood how it was working, then tore it all down and put it all back together again. So by the time it got to where they wanted to do this and they needed someone to do it, I could step up and say, yeah, I can do this in my sleep. I've done this dozens of times because I went through and did it at home. Now, granted, it's going to be a different scale, larger, corporate environment, more users, et cetera, et cetera. But once you get the basics down, expanding on that isn't that hard. So some of the things you can do to kind of help yourself get a leg up in this industry are things like take advantage of some of the free training that's out there. Like we run a free level 1 threat hunting lab. There was a slide in the beginning that kind of talked about my advanced class that goes beyond this, but the basic skills of what you need as a threat hunter is all in this class, and it's free. And it's slide content, there's video audio presentation around it. There's a VM you can download and do hands-on labs. It's everything you need to start getting yourself into the comfort zone of being able to say, yeah, I can go through and I can actually check a network to see, is the integrity state still high on everything that's sitting on this network? And the link to go sign up for this is down the bottom. We won't be running another class until next year, but if you need it now, the archive is there. You can go in and you can view the last time we went through and taught this class, which was just a couple of weeks ago. Once you get through that, your next best bet, start checking a live environment. And the easiest environment for you to go through and check without needing any kind of blessing from somebody else is your own home network. We've got phones, we've got TVs, we've got IoT devices that all do all sorts of really weird communications. And getting used to being able to spot that, how do I track it down to figure out if it's evil or not? Even if everything you check on your network turns out to be okay, you're still honing that process. You're still going through those threat hunting steps, which is look for connection persistency, try to identify if there's a business need with the endpoint that you're connecting to out on the internet, go in and analyze the protocol, and then go in and see if you can't figure out why the heck is my host doing this. And usually at some point through that process, you'll be able to say, yeah, I think it's evil, or no, I don't think it is. In other words, you might get as far as validating the outside source, and you say, oh, hey, this is a Windows system that's constantly connecting out to, Microsoft's infrastructure. Oh, all right, yeah, this is probably Windows just calling home to check out message bus or check for patches or something along those lines. You get the idea. So doing this at home is the easiest way to do it. Well, how do you set up a home lab? Well, we got webcasts on that. Our illustrious Mr. Bill Stearns has put out a lot of content around this. These are just the webcasts. There's actually blog entries that kind of revolve around this as well. So you've got everything you need to be able to figure out, how do I get this deployed in my environment? If you're not familiar with the Raspberry Pi, you really need to be. It's just a really inexpensive computer, like $150 US, that'll run a Linux operating system. And you can do anything with it. There's tons of stuff out there, examples of what you can do with the Raspberry Pi. But for our intents and purposes, is one of the things you can do with it is you can run it as a network probe. You can run Zeek on it. You can run NTOP on it. You can go through and you can run Suricata on it. Now you're going in and doing a security validation of what's taking place on your home network. Once you get through that and you want to keep going, we have blog entries called Malware of the Day. And these are designed to do exactly what you need, hone your skills even further. So what Hannah and Keith do with this is they go through, they pick a piece of malware, they look at the command and control channel, they set it up, they run through it, and then they also provide, most importantly, PCAPs of what that traffic looks like. So when you want to go through and kind of hone your skills and your process, when sign up to get an alert when we do new blog entries. And when you get that, you'll see, some blog entries cover other topics, but about every other one, every third one or so is going to be a malware of the day. And when you see that, go to the page, and as the slide says, skip to the bottom. Don't read the blog. Immediately skip down to the very bottom, because what's there is a 1 hour and a 24-hour PCAP you can download. Now download those things. Go through and see if you can figure out, okay, what in this file is actually malicious. Now go back and read the blog entry. Did you miss anything? Like maybe you figured out it was beaconing, but maybe you didn't figure out that the digital certificate was bogus, or that the user agent string made it look like it was a, Windows for work group system, which would, completely not make sense. Or maybe it was, requesting the same URL over and over again, thousands of times a day. Okay, great. What did you miss? What do you need to tweak in your process? Because once you hone this process, now when you go into an interview, and if you're asked, say, oh, hey, what do you do as part of threat hunting? Bang, 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 bang. You can run right through the list, because it's kind of like driving, right? When you first start driving, everything is a conscious effort, right? Keeping the car going straight, maintaining the correct speed, everything is a conscious effort. But you practice, and all of a sudden, all of that stuff just becomes second nature, right? You get into that scary area where you kind of look out your front windshield and realize, wow, I'm 10 miles further along my route than I thought I was, because your body can kind of go into this response mode where it's just all automatic. A lot less stressful, uses up less brain energy to be able to do it. You want to try and get the skills you use most often into that area. This is how you go through and you do that. Okay, so that lets you build up some skills, right? So if you kind of think about what do you need to do to kind of prove, well, and I thought I had a slide on this. Maybe I went by it and didn't really mention it. No, I didn't. Okay. All right. Sorry. Weird flow here. My bad. The certifications matter. What's our goal? Is our goal to collect as many certification as we can? Precious, we need more. Is that it? No. It's to get hired, right? That is our goal. We want to get hired. Okay, how do we get hired? We convince the person doing the hiring that we are the best fit for the job. There's two components to that. There's a social aspect for that. Are we a good fit for the culture of the company? And I'll come back and I'll address that one later. But there's a technical aspect to that, which is they want to know you can do your job, do this job. So really what this is about is, how do you convey to that person that you're capable of executing on this job that they want to hire you for? And really there's a couple of ways here, right? There's having many years of experience, there's having certifications, or possibly being known as a leader within the industry type of thing. All of those really accomplish that same goal. It doesn't have to be just certifications. That's not the only answer. And quite honestly, a lot of companies have gotten more flexible with that. So the many years of experience, one of the nice things here with threat hunting is this is a new discipline, right? Nobody, not me, not John Strand, not nobody has more than 5 years of experience in doing this, because the technology needed to be able to do this didn't exist until then. Now, with that said, you're gonna hear people claim they've been doing this forever. I'm not one to get violent at a program. Like, I'm not one of these people that like yell at my TV and want to throw things at it. But SANS recently did a threat hunting summit, and their keynote speaker, who is someone I know well and someone I used to have respect for, to me, just like, oh my God, I wanted to bust my computer. They made me so angry, because they were going off about how, oh, threat hunting, we're just relabeling things, and it's about checking logs and writing signatures. And no, it's not. Anybody who thinks that doesn't understand threat hunting. They shouldn't be talking, let alone doing a keynote. And what kind of blew me away is they kind of combined it with like their annual threat hunting report that was very clear on all of this stuff is not threat hunting. So yeah, whatever. But like I said, this levels the playing field, because even me, I only have a couple of years of a head start on you on this. It's not that hard to catch up with me. So if you can catch up with me, if you can catch up with John, it's real easy to get out in front of this stuff. That's cool. So one possibility is the years of experience, and we're all kind of in that same page because it's a small window to work with here. Certifications. So that first bullet might bug some people, right? Because I say, is this the non-creative, lazy solution? What do I mean by that? Certifications are kind of designed to be that cookie cutter approach to solving that problem of how do you get a potential hiring manager to think you're capable of doing that job, right? Because that's just kind of like the norm. Hey, let me get lots of certifications. You see people that, on their email signature have to list out the 15 different initials after the name from all the certifications they've gotten. Personally, I shy away from people like that when I hire. I spent some time at Dartmouth helping them start their security institute. I got a chance to work with a lot of PhDs. And what I found was that not all of them, but many people that do a lot of research want to do research and talk. They don't want to actually create things to solve problems. And when you're trying to solve problems in an industry, that can be a problem. Yeah, we need to talk about it and we need to theorize. That goes without saying. But I'm a, get S done type of person. I want to, go ahead, you talk, I will fix. And a lot of those folks tend to not have that type of thing. So what I find is that folks that have a lot of certifications, they're great at studying, they're not actually as good at solving these problems. So as a manager, too many certs are actually kind of a turnoff to me, which can sound kind of weird. But you got to keep in mind that for some organizations, this is a checkbox. In other words, they're not sure how to make sure you're capable of doing this job beyond seeing how many initials you can put after the end of your name. Now, to me, this is almost like a cleaning filter, because personally, I don't think I would want to work at that type of an organization. In other words, that type of an organization is someone that is a late adopter type of industry. They're behind the times. Their management styles are going to be archaic. I know I wouldn't personally be happy there. Some of the newer, more cutting edge type of management styles and the ways to kind of look at solving labor problems are something I'm in alignment. I would rather go to a company like that. So that's almost like self-checking for me, if you will, but you may feel differently. Just keep in mind that some places, they don't know how else to check you beyond seeing how many certs you have after your name. Keep that in mind when you're looking around. As far as known industry leader goes, one of the things I like about this is a certification about, let's say you've got some sort of like pen testing certification. Because, hey, there's what, a dozen of them out there? So let's say you have one of them. What does that tell me about you? Well, that tells me you're probably familiar with some of the common pen testing tools and you're good at studying and you can pass tests. Now, what if you've done a series of blog entries or YouTube videos or whatever on doing pen testing? Well, now I get to see your skills in action. Now I get a feel for your personality. Now, what's really important for you as the person looking for a job, I start bonding with your personality. I have a personal interest in you. That is really going to help you get in the door if you can kind of convey that type of thing. So how do you lead? How do you put this stuff out there? Because it can seem a little daunting, right? You kind of look at like, what we put out there, and you might feel like, well, I'm not sure what I can add. You can always add value, right? What I usually do is I look at what problem do I need to solve? How hard is it to solve it? How hard is it to find information out there on it? Like, let's say I want to lock down an SSH server so you can only log in using public-private keys. All right, I'll do a Google search on that. And, 1,000 pages come up. All right, I'm not going to write about that because so many people have clearly already written about how to solve that problem. But I know one of the most popular blog entries on our site is how to go through and specify which specific IP and TCP fields you want to print out using T-Shark. And when I searched the internet on that, I didn't find a whole lot of useful information. So I went through, solved the problem for myself, and then went through and wrote about it and put that information out there for other people. And like I said, it is consistently every month. I wrote that article 3 years ago, and it is consistently every month the most popular article that people go out and grab. So look for trying to solve your own problems. That's always one of the best ways you can go about doing it. And do it whatever way you're comfortable with. I grew up authoring books. I've written, God only knows how many, networking and security books. So blogging is kind of a natural thing for me. You may feel very comfortable in front of a camera. Great, do it as a YouTube video or a Twitch or whatever. Leverage the type of medium you're happy with. Just keep in mind, you want it to be something that's indexable. By that, I mean, if you do a video that no one can search for and find, it's kind of like the tree falling in the forest. It doesn't really make a noise because no one's there to actually hear that noise. Well, this is the same thing. If you create that content, but nobody can find it, it isn't necessarily going to help you go out and find a job. The other thing it's good for, and Bill and I kid about this all the time, blogging about it and creating videos on this stuff is our way of kind of doing a personal notebook. In other words, that, going through and figuring out how to do -T fields within T-Shark, I could have just made some notes someplace in a document, and now when I need to find it, I got to go searching my hard drive. Well, because I blogged about it, all I got to do is Google it, and it tends to be one of the first things that pop up as part of that. So pay attention to SEO. And here's some great examples. So, one of the things Bill's done, which I think has been awesome, is anytime he wants to solve a problem, he goes through and he creates a tool about it. And if you go up and you look at stearns.org, which, by the way, he doesn't put his tools there anymore, he puts them on GitHub. But, he's got like over 1,000 different problems he's gone through and created tools to solve. This is cool, and some of them he wrote a long time ago, and they're really still super useful today. One of my personal favorites is this one right here, Fanout. Fanout is a tool that lets you send commands via SSH to multiple systems en masse. So for example, let's say you have a need to go through and have all of your systems immediately patch update to the latest security patches. You can go through and you can do a sudo apt, -y update and send that out via Fanout to 30 systems all at the same time. And Fanout will go through and open up all the little windows to show you the status of what came back. It's like one of the coolest SSH tools that are out there. And he wrote it years ago, and it's still available for folks. But writing tools to solve problems, that's a great way to go through and get yourself noticed. The other possibility is, like I said, blogging and doing videos. So I'm picking on Hannah here because Hannah is fresh out of school. So, Bill, myself, we've been doing this for a while. We're a little long in the tooth, Both of us have like 30 years of experience behind us in, IT and security. Plus, I started in the 80s. I think Bill did too. Hannah is kind of just getting started in her path. But go through and do a search on her name, or at least when I do, I come up with 1,000 different results. Think about that from a hiring manager's perspective. Because Google is just such a common tool. This is something we're just going to go off and do, right? If you come in and you apply to a job with me, one of the first things I'm going to do is Google you. And I may Google you, with quotes around your name to make sure I don't get other variations of that spelling of those words. And I'm probably going to throw in the word security or IT or whatever type of job I'm hiring you for, QA, whatever the case may be. And I'm going to see what comes back. And if nothing comes back, I'm not impressed. Hannah's less than a year out of school. Here's 1,000 results. That's pretty cool. And it's everything from like what pops up front and center is her LinkedIn profile, which is well written. Here's videos she's done. Here's blog entries she's done. That's the way to go through and get yourself noticed. So imagine, someone who maybe has 1 page of results in Google or less going up against Hannah for a job. Which one's going to be more impressive to the hiring manager? If it was me, it's going to be Hannah, right? The other thing it does, like I said, this helps to convey your personality and who you are. And that's what you want the hiring manager to hook into. There's kind of 2 schools of thought. And really the break tends to be around millennials. When you look at like baby boomers and most of the folks that are in like Generation X, they tend to hire based on technical skills. That's their primary focus. When you look at millennials and later, they tend to hire based upon culture fit for the organization. And quite honestly, I think the millennials get that right. Because, personally, I know that if you're smart technically but disruptive, let's say you like to hog credit for the stuff you do, you're going to be a pain in the ass to work with. You're going to be a pain in the ass for me to manage, even though you can technically execute on things very well. And it's tough to teach people not to be a-holes, right? I also know that for someone who isn't strong technically, but has a lot of passion and drive, and they're a good social fit for the environment, they're going to fly. They're going to do awesome. I would much rather hire that second person. I would much rather hire someone knowing that day one when they walk in, they may not be able to execute on that job, but they've got the drive to do it, and they have the culture fit to fit in with the rest of the organization, which tells me they're going to be a long-term employee. Someone who's just a good technical fit, yeah, not as much. But like I said, I'm a little bit oddball. So I am right at that cusp of baby boomers and Gen X. But baby boomers and Gen X, like I said, tend to hire based on technical only. The social is more like, yeah, I hate to say it, but I'm kind of a millennial in that way. All right. So submitting your resume. Couple of things you want to kind of keep track of here. When we talked, and Jason and I Jason mostly talked about this before we started the class. One is that keep in mind what process your resume is going to go through, right? It isn't going to come in and a person will look at it. It's going to come in, it's going to go through some software. And if the software thinks you're okay, now a person will go in and look at it. And that first person is probably going to be an HR person, and then they'll filter it out, and then it'll eventually get to the hiring manager. Personally, I circumvent this entire system. When I hire people, I go to HR and say, I do not want you to screen anything. I want you to send all the resumes to me. And they're always like, well, that's too many, blah, blah, blah. No. This is my job, is to hire the right person. One of the things I found is that these systems are very biased, in some cases racist. I think it was Google tried this. They wrote their own software to do this, and what they did is they said, hey, let's look internally and look at what skills those people have, and we'll use that as data to feed into our AI system to be able to go through and make sure we hire the right people. And what they found was, because most of their existing employee base was white male, and somewhere in the 20 to 40 range, the software, not surprisingly, predominantly chose white males 20 to 40. They were having trouble with diversity. So the software was kind of, they didn't intend for it to be racist software, but it kind of turned out to be racist software. Well, even if it's not racist, this, you're going in and doing a keyword search type of thing, you're gonna get a cookie cutter type of employee all the time, and that's not going to help with diversity. So as a manager, I always circumvent this system. But keep in mind, most managers do not. So you're going to have a software layer to get past first, and then you're going to have an HR layer to get past, and then you'll actually get to the person that is actually doing the hiring. One of the biggest recommendations I can give you, stick with doc format. Stick with docx. If you don't have Microsoft Word, that's okay. You can use Google Documents, and it will let you download it in this format. The reason I say that is a lot of these software systems have trouble with PDF format. They don't have trouble with docx. So stick with that format when you share things out. Do your homework. As Jason talked about, look at the job description. What are they keying in on? What are the keywords that are part of that, or the things that they're looking at? Okay, now look at your resume. Now go through and make sure your resume includes those keywords. And does it in a way that the software system will notice it, maybe multiple times and say, oh, that's a higher score, and kick it out of the system so the HR person can see it. And when you've written it up on the page, you've added, white space, bolding, whatever is needed to highlight the keywords that they're looking for, so that as that HR person skims the page real quick, they can basically just check things off. Oh, hey, this has all the keywords they told me was important as part of that job. Great, this is going to go to the HR manager. So you get the idea. Now, I talked about there's ways to go in and kind of try and game these systems, almost like almost like SEO with a website. So I can go in and I can do things like add text that is white, that has, so let's say one of the keywords is threat hunting. Well, I could go in and in white text add threat hunting, 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 threat hunting. Well, now if the system's scoring up how many instances it sees of the keywords it was told to look for, well, hey, your resume is going to ride up to the top, right? And hey, the text is in white, so the person shouldn't see that, so the person won't be able to tell you were gaming the system. Yeah, you might get away with it, you might not. It's not worth it. It's not worth potentially getting caught and being put in a position where that might not only lose you that job, but any other potential jobs going forward within that organization. I know most of the companies I've worked at, we had a ban list. We had people that doesn't matter what they apply for, their resume is not going to be considered. And that type of thing will probably get you on that type of a list. I gave you a link at the bottom that kind of talks about, what are some of the things you can do. Keep in mind, what can be considered okay to do and what not to do, like white text. Like I said, that to me would be a no. Let's see. I would never open a docx from someone I didn't know. Good point. But there's the system. So unless they say you cannot submit in this format, in which case they have an automated system that can read PDFs and they're fine, stick with that format. I hear what you're saying, but most places will go through and scrutinize what actually comes in to make sure that it's actually safe. And like I said, yeah, you could send in PDF instead, because you're afraid someone will look at the docx and not want to do it, but that may not process your resume as well as someone else who did actually do it in docx format. All right. So you see a job posting, you kind of tweak your resume to fit what the job posting's looking for, all that stuff we talked about, and you get a call back. You get an opportunity to do a phone conversation with somebody, or they want you to come in, or whatever the case may be. What do you do next? That second bullet to me is key. Think red team passive reconnaissance. Passive being the active word. Do not break out Nmap and start scanning their environment. Do not launch Nessus. No. This isn't a posting for a job is not an opportunity for you to go in and kind of bend the rules. Passive reconnaissance, doing open source intelligence gathering is a great way to learn as much as you can about this organization. Who's there? What tools do they use? What skills do they have? This is going to help you really don't think about this as going for a job. Think about this as you are a consultant and you're going to be asked about what's the best way to go through and implement a threat hunting program there. What type of information would you need to make that decision? And how would you go about pulling that type of a process together? That's really what you want to be doing here. You want to go in as well armed as you possibly can. So the more you can learn about the organization, the better. Develop a generic threat hunting plan. By that I mean, you don't necessarily have to have something exactly specifically mapped out, but you should have something pretty close in your head. You should have a pretty good idea of like what platforms they deal with. Are they in Amazon, or are they just on-prem? Are they multi-cloud? What are they dealing with? And your plan should have some semblance of how to incorporate all of those different types of assets. And make sure you do your research on anybody you're going to talk to. Find out who you're going to talk to. There's absolutely nothing wrong with asking, hey, I'd just like to get an idea of who I'll be chatting with while I'm there. Research those people too. What are they like? What do they know? I had someone come in for an interview that one of the first things out of their mouth was, so what exactly do you guys do here? Yeah, okay, job interview over. We're done. Because what information is conveyed in that question? What's conveyed in that question is, hey, I just want a job and you have a job. I don't care about your organization. I didn't care enough to find out anything about you. I don't want somebody who doesn't care. I want somebody who's here because they believe the mission of the organization. So do your homework, understand who's there, understand the personalities that are involved, understand what tools are there. You can typically go through LinkedIn and Indeed or other job posting sites and very quickly pull together a list of, hey, they're running Checkpoint Firewall, they're running McAfee for endpoint protection, they're using Splunk for the centralized logging, just based on what skills people are bragging about within LinkedIn and what skills they were looking for as part of the job interview process. Don't tell them you did this. It can seem like a brag, right? So you go in and you talk to the manager and you say, well, I did some research on your organization, and did you know 20 of your email addresses are on the dark web? No, that's kind of creepy, right? Wait a minute. I asked you in for a job interview and you're stalking me. That's almost like, hey, let's have a first date that's a coffee date, and then I find out you've been standing outside my window staring at me all day. No, no, this is bad. Yick, yick. Don't do that. What you should do is make sure that your process incorporates that type of thing. So if you found that, yeah, they have email addresses that have gone leaked out that have led to that, maybe when you describe a generic process that you think might be helpful to them, you can include those types of steps. Because chances are, if they've been compromised, they know it, and they know what happened, and they know how it happened. And if you come in acting like you don't necessarily know about that, but you're pushing the tools and processes that would have helped that type of an event from occur or detected it very early, that's going to win you some brownie points. There's power in kind of knowing some of this stuff without necessarily revealing it right away. What's the organization's why? Why do they do this? Don't comment on your review of their home from Zillow. Oh, Michael, it's good to have you back. That is a funny comment. Yes, I would agree with that advice. The person who's interviewing you, do not comment on what their, Zillow home review looks like. Oh, this group is awesome. So what do I mean by their why? Every organization has a purpose. They have a reason why they're doing what they're doing. I included part of the, statement for active countermeasures down here. A group of like-minded geeks that believe in giving back to the security community. We do this through free training, thought leadership, both open source and affordable commercial tools. What does that tell you about that organization? There's more there than just that, right? This isn't just, hey, this is what we sell. We want to make money. This is, we have a purpose. We have goals we want to achieve that go beyond money. Yeah, we want enough money to make sure that everybody keeps getting their salaries and nobody has to sell a house. I mean, that's a given. But there's a larger goal we want to accomplish as an organization. What does that tell you about the folks within that organization? When you go in for an interview, one of the things you should be looking at is, what is this organization's why, and does it align with me? In other words, if you feel like, I want to save the world, I want to do something that really matters, and they're making, carrot widgets that make carrots a little bit more orange when they're on display, well, that doesn't necessarily align with your why. You're not going to be happy there. So that's one of the things to think about. Also, if it does align with your why, make sure that's something that you express as part of the interview process. And I don't necessarily mean that, you mention their, you quote their mission statement verbatim to them, like, that means something. No, I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is, if I was interviewing at a place and this is their mission statement, I'm going to go into that interview talking about, I love giving back to the community. I love hopping on mailing lists, helping out people that have trouble. We all start somewhere. Everybody needs a leg up to get better in this industry, and I really love being able to pay it forward by helping people out like that. I love being able to figure out tools to solve problems and sharing that with the industry, because, hey, the bad guys, they talk to each other. They have a nice, infrastructure. We need to do better than that as the good guys. We need to be, we need to be involved. What have I just done? I've shown my personality is in complete alignment with that organization. If that matters to that hiring manager, I just got a nice big check mark as part of that. I got a link down the bottom. Simon Sinek. He's written a number of really good books, but one of them that most people are familiar with is Start With Why. And it kind of talks about it. It basically is a marketing book, but to me, it's kind of a life book. The link in YouTube is not the book, but it is a link to a talk he does that kind of gives the basics of what he talks about in the book, Start With Why. So I wanted to give you, here's the long thing to kind of get better material, which is the book, and here's quick, short, free, which is the YouTube video. And I give you that for a couple of these. So interview tricks and tips. Let's kind of talk about this. So we've got our resume in. We got a call to do, maybe it's over a video conference, maybe it's to go in physically, but we've got an interview set up. We've done our homework. We kind of think we have an idea of what their organization looks like and a decent plan to maybe go through and solve their threat hunting problems. And now we're ready to kind of go and show up. One of the things you really want to do is make sure you dress the part. Now, I know this is kind of old-fashioned, and it is. But one of the things you should be doing as part of your research is figuring out the person doing the hiring. What are they like? How old are they? What can I learn from their LinkedIn profile? If their LinkedIn profile goes back 40 years, guess what? They're going to be a baby boomer, or maybe a Gen X. They're going to be an older person that came up through the ranks in environments that probably required suits and ties. So they've moved past that now, but their comfort level may have only moved so much. In other words, they have now maybe moved to a collared jersey is okay with a dark set of jeans or khakis that has no holes in it and a set of Dockers, and that's their comfort zone. And if you show up for a resume or for an interview dressed too far out of their comfort zone, that's going to end up being a mark against you. Now, I know a lot of people get sticklers about this, and I'll be honest, there was a time in my life I loved the fact that I could go into like the Boston Financial District, walk into a financial company that had a mandatory dark suit, white shirt, and nondescript tie policy for every male employee, and I would show up in a tank top, shorts, and a pair of flip-flops. And I was so damn good at what I did that still let me in the door, because many times they had problems that they couldn't solve, consultants they brought in couldn't solve, and I knew I could solve it. And they would put up with the way I was dressed because of the level of skill I had. Now, if you're that far ahead of the industry and all your peers, you can get away with that. I remember a point in time I used to do consulting work for the FBI, and I insisted on a bowl of kiwis every time I was there, and they made one available for me. They'll put up with that if you have skills nobody else has. If you don't, then they may not necessarily want to put up with that type of a thing. So again, just go in, kind of dress the part. How do you find out what's normal casual dress? Oh, come on, it's the age of social media. Someone's posted pictures from inside the organization there. You're going to be able to see how people are dressed. Pop it up one level. So if you see people who are wearing jeans and a t-shirt and that's normal work attire, great. Throw on a pair of jeans, throw on, a collared shirt, you'll be good to go. You don't need a tie. If it looks like everybody has a dress shirt on with no tie, yeah, maybe you want to show up to the interview wearing a tie. Go one level up from normal attire. Could we require everyone to wear flip-flops? Well, we could try. We could try. Any tips for remote interviews? Yeah, actually, I'm going to get into that a little bit. A lot of that comes down to reading body language. Not just body language, but vocal tones. And I'll talk about that in just a little bit. One big part of this too is knowing your story. You have 2 to 3 minutes max to hook every person you talk to. In other words, so we like to think of ourselves as evolved humans, but the reality is our brains are still wired for the Serengeti 10,000 years ago. So we are wired in a way that we make snap decisions. We're happy making a major decision based on limited information as long as we can execute as quickly as we can. And one of that is to assess potential threats. And as someone coming in on a job interview, in a lot of ways, you're a potential threat, right? You could be someone who completely disables the functionality of that organization. You could be someone that just comes in like a bull in a china shop and pisses off all the existing employees. You're a potential threat. So anybody interviewing you, their Serengeti brain set is evaluating you. And in that first 2 or 3 minutes, they're going to make a determination about, are you in the good pile or the bad pile? That doesn't necessarily mean in the first 2 or 3 minutes, they're going to decide whether you should have the job or not. It just means that your appearance, your mannerisms, the way you carry yourself, all of that is going to be evaluated very quickly. And after that, it's too late. Second interview, too late. These people have already made up their minds. Part of this is knowing your story. We, as humans, we love stories, right? That one of the reasons I think conspiracy theories get traction is because some of them have intriguing storylines to them, right? Area 51. There's all sorts of intriguing stories about aliens that have been found and spaceships, and and it sounds good, and we get drawn in based on the story itself. How do you define your personal journey in a similar fashion? I talked about, hey, when I got started, I had this nondescript job, nothing to do with IT, and I rose above that and went and, learned on my own, got the skills I needed, and that's what got me on the road that I am on today. That is a classic hero's journey. Folks love stuff like that. So think about that. Think about what is your professional journey that you want to be able to convey. How do you want to convey it as precisely and as quickly as possible? Think about what questions might come up. Have you worked in interesting places? What can you or can you not say about that? Are there gaps in your jobs? Why? Expect that to come up. Know how to be able to talk through this. Know how to be able to tell a good story. Because as I said, as humans, we tend to gravitate to good storytelling. The link on the bottom kind of talks about this is advice for someone doing technical hiring of the type of questions they should be asking. You should be able to go through that list and have a good, precise answer to every single one of those questions. Not just an answer that answers the question, but an answer that conveys, I'm somebody you want to have as part of your team. And read the room. So there was a question about, hey, so any advice for video conferencing? So one of my biggest advices for any type of an interview is learn body language, learn vocal deflection and what it means. What are these signs that, so here's the thing. There is this urban myth that you can look for different things and tell if a person lies. And that's complete BS. Like, I've heard, oh, hey, if someone answers a question and they look up and to the right when they do, that means they're lying. Bullshit. That is not a true statement. When we communicate with others, it goes back to that Serengeti brain where everything is kind of that, first we freeze and then it's flight or fright. That fight or flight, right? That's the process. So when there's potential danger, we hear that crunch of something in the woods behind us. The first thing we do is freeze. The next thing we do, and as part of that process, we evaluate the threat landscape to decide, are we going to fight or are we going to run away? It's going to be one or the other. This is how we deal with problems. You coming in as an interviewer, as I said, you're a potential threat. You're going to get evaluated with that brain set. Leverage that. Part of leveraging that is being able to understand body language. Now, one of the toughest parts of reading body language in a video conference environment is some of the best clues you can get come from people's feet. And you don't get to see that as part of a video conference. You can see that as part of the environment when you're actually sitting in an interview. But doing it video-wise, it's hard. All you have to work on is the face. And the hard part with the face is that is the thing that people learn how to lie with. Like, one of the cutest little videos I saw was a kid with chocolate all over their face. And the mom saying, hey, did you eat the chocolate? And the kid saying no. But as they say no, their head's nodding up and down saying yes. They couldn't control the body language cues. They hadn't learned that skill yet. So how to control our face is something we learn over time. So that makes it a little bit harder on the video conference size. Joe Navarro is hands down by far the biggest expert in the world on how to read body language. He's got a book called The Dictionary of Body Language, and I highly recommend everybody, regardless of what job you're in, read that book, because it is going to help you communicate and deal with people a whole lot easier. At C. Brenton, you must be a poker player. No, I know not to play poker. I've got a video link down there. There's a bunch of YouTube videos that'll give you short little snippets about some of the stuff he knows, but I highly recommend his book. Avoid social faux pas. What do I mean by that? My morning breakfast trick. So when I hire a manager, one of the things I'll do is I'll set them up with an early interview. I'll say, hey, yeah, we'll do the interview at 9 o'clock. And then what I'll do is a day or two before the interview actually is supposed to take place, I'll drop them a note and say, hey, I just thought about you're coming in at 9 anyway. Why don't I take you out to breakfast beforehand? So let's meet at 8 o'clock at this coffee shop. And that was my plan all the time, but I'm making it seem like this is just an off-the-cuff thing, which means it isn't something they need to be on guard about. And then what I'll do is I'll show up at the coffee shop about 45 minutes before the person shows up, and I will go find the waiter or waitress that's going to be taking care of us, and I'll give them like a $40 tip. And I'll say, this is half your tip, but to get the other half of the tip, this is what I want you to do. I'm going to come in with somebody. I want you to lightly mess up their order. If they order orange juice, bring them apple juice. If they order white toast, bring them, brown toast or cinnamon toast or something else. If they ask for scrambled, bring them over easy. Mess up their order slightly. And what I do is I evaluate how does that person respond to them? Because there's three possibilities, right? One is they're kind of a dick about it. They call the waitress over, oh, you must be stupid. How could you mess this up? I was very clear in what I wanted, blah, 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 blah. Okay. I'm not even going to bring you in the building for the interview anymore. You're already done. Because if you need to berate somebody because they made a mistake, that is not somebody I want on my management team. I'll also go through and look for, do they let it ride? Now, if I'm hiring an individual contributor, I'm okay with that. I'm not okay with that as a manager. A manager's job is to make sure things are executed in a proper way. If you can't get your food order straightened out, you're not going to be able to manage a tech team. It's not going to happen. So you just failed the management test. What I'm looking for is a creative way for them to bring that wait person back and get their order straightened out. Hey, I'm sorry, I'm still tired. I probably misspoke. Or, hey, this other situation, come up with something creative to solve that problem. If they do that, hey, we're off to the interview and you already get a plus in your column. Divide and conquer trick. So that one is, when you're in an interview, you're in a guarded state, right? So imagine you're in an inner city you've never been in before in a dark alley. What state is your mind in? Your mind's sharp, your mind's listening and watching for any possible threat that could take place, right? Because you're in a dark, obscure location. You don't know what's going to come around the corner or out of the woods or whatever to come eat you. So you're going to be sharp. You do the same thing when you're in an interview. When you go walk in, because how does most places run an interview? They set aside a room, they sit you down, and people stream in and ask you the same questions over and over again, right? To be guarded in that situation. So what I like to do is at some point, pull you out of that room and say, hey, your interview's been going great. I don't even have to bother asking you any questions. Well, that puts you off your guard because now you feel like, hey, I'm a shoo-in for this. This is going well. And now we go off and we get a cup of coffee or something. And I walk you around, I find diversions, and as part of the diversions, I also start asking you some pointed questions, and I look at how you respond, because it's going to be harder for you to lie or hide your body language and not give me an honest response. So that's one of the tricks I use, so keep an eye out for that. Set them up for failure trick. What do I mean by that? I mean that I will expose them to something and see how they respond that could potentially have a negative effect. So for example, if the place has a game room, do they go into the game room and immediately want to engage in games and lose track of the fact that they're actually supposed to be there for an interview? That's bad. I've seen places that have had liquor on site. Do they want to, do a shot of whiskey at 11 o'clock in the morning? If so, yeah, they're getting kind of distracted. That might be a problem. If there's an area of the building where there are members of the opposite sex that are attractive, how much does their head dart around walking through that area? That's something I'm going to be keying in on. Again, interviews are kind of like a first date. Any bad signs are something you need to kind of amplify and make sure you pay attention to. Let's see, really bad interview skills. So I've had all this happen. I had somebody come in for an interview and then when they were done, ask if they could change in my office. Hey, that kind of eliminates the reason why you wore a suit in the first place. I had somebody bragging about the equipment they were stealing from the current employer. Had someone say, hey, I'm actually, I did not take time off for work to do this interview. So my current employer is paying me to try and leave their employment. Yeah, no, that doesn't give off a good vibe. Oops, I spilled my drink in your lap. Here, let me get that for you. Yeah, they were being very obvious, and this is bad. Again, don't be that person. It's a way to kill your chances very, very quickly. Another thing to do, post-interview follow-up. Don't ask for people's email. Usually at least one person is going to give you a business card. That should give you the format of what the email addresses look like. Send a follow-up thank you note to everybody that you talk to. Show some level of professional excitement about it. Hey, I really enjoyed, talking to you about, working with Zeek. It's one of my favorite tools too, or, find something common ground to bond on at an excitement level to let them feel like you accepted them as a person. That's going to make them more likely to want to accept you as well. I'll look into that for you trick. So one of the things that I might do is during the interview, and this makes the most sense to do with the person who's actually doing the hiring. If they mention a problem that you know how to solve, let it go. I'm not saying do this all the time. You need to kind of pick where's a good spot for this. But if it's something, let's say, kind of highly technical or exoteric, but you actually know the answer to that, don't answer it. Oh, yeah, wow, that's a real unique problem. I'm not sure I've run into that before, but that's please don't take this the wrong way. I'm kind of a geek, but that kind of sounds cool. I definitely want to dig into that. When you send your thank you note, send them the answer. What does that show? That shows commitment to solving the problems, right? You went through and you didn't have the answer off the cuff, but you left and were obsessed about wanting to answer this question for them. Now, that's not exactly a true statement. You already knew the answer, but that is the illusion of the story that gets conveyed to the person who's trying to hire, and it's going to help put you in a positive check in their eyes. Community support. So we had Jason on at the beginning of this. Leverage that community. He's really done a great job of building together a bunch of resources, some generic interviewing techniques you can use. I highly recommend you tune in for that. And with that, good luck in your hunt. And if you have any questions, this is my email address. We'll be monitoring Discord for a while. Let's see. Sometimes even how you walk with them is something they pay attention to. Yeah. Are you barging ahead of them, lagging behind, slowing them down, keeping stride along with them? Absolutely. Are you making eye contact? That's important. We tend to be less trusting of people that don't make eye contact. It's also that, are you barging ahead? Do you feel like you're going to be a lead over this person? There are power signals in body language. Things like leaning back in your chair. And it's kind of funny, if you take your hands and put them on top of your head, that is a point of stress. That is, there's something perplexing I'm dealing with and I'm trying to make rational sense of it. But do the exact same motion on the back of your head, and that is I am spreading myself out open because I feel safe in this environment because I am dominant. And doing a dominant stance like that to someone who's interviewing you may be perceived negatively by them. You may all of a sudden become, gee, I don't know if I want to hire this person. They may end up gunning for my job. So again, that whole bit I gave you about learn how to read body language, it's for two reasons. Number one is so that you can kind of get a read on how this person is doing with what you're communicating to them. But the other is so you can better communicate to them and not have things be misunderstood. That's a great point. Got a drop? Yep, cool. Let's see. Jason suggests reply within 7 days for the first reply. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'd probably do it the next morning. It is kind of my normal. Don't do it the same day. That seems a little bit over aggressive. But by the next morning, it kind of seems like, yeah, it was something you put on your task list and you wanted to make sure you executed with. Eye contact can backfire in some cultures. Yeah, so there's a timing with that, right? Because, think about that. Try to do it with someone you trust. How long can that person look at you before it moves into the creepy zone? And it's probably around 2 seconds maximum. And that's going to vary a little bit depending upon different cultures. So yeah, eye contact and even, body language in general is social. which means it's going to have cultural implications. Make sure you understand that, and you are adopting to the person that is hiring, it's not necessarily what you're most comfortable with. I mentioned managing up, and it was just a single bullet in this. It's something I teach a security leadership class, and it's something I talk a lot more about because it's important. You need, part of managing up is figuring out how does this person do business. You need to adapt yourself to them in order to keep them happy. The interview process is the same type of thing. Let's see what else. I mentor some folks, and this information is invaluable to pass on. Yeah, go for it, dude. If the slides are helpful, grab them, whatever you need. Any tips on what to do when the job is a remote interview and will be over Teams or Zoom? Yeah, like I said, anything that's virtual, you're stuck with the face, you're stuck with the vocal tones. So if you've never learned how to read body language, focus on those areas. When I start teaching people about body language, because it's very helpful as part of social engineering, I always start with the feet, because it's always the least obvious when you're looking at someone's feet versus when you're looking at them in their face. And we actually communicate a lot of information with our feet, but you lose that on a video conference. So focus on the facial expressions and what different things mean. Let's see, what else? Unflinching, unending eye contact equals stare. Yep, I would agree with that. There's definitely a timer involved. Let's see, if you interview conflicts, keep the eye contact going. I had that happen. I had a great candidate, but when my boss interviewed him, he actually asked me if I was sure I wanted to hire him. He has the attitude that he will be taking your job in the very near future. So there's two ways to look at that, right? If the way I look at it, if I want to move up within an organization, I need someone who can fill my role. I need someone I can mentor into filling my job. So there's two ways to kind of look at that. You can look at it as that person will take my job and I will be out of a job, or that person will take my job, which will free me up to be able to move up higher within the organization. And you need to find where's your comfort zone with that. Let's see, I feel my skills are getting better, but I still insecure when employer asks for a technical test. Any tips? Great question. One of the things that you need to be careful of is, so some of them will give generic tests, and those always kind of bug me. Like I remember one test I took in an organization said, what is the proper command to identify the IP address assigned to a network interface on a system? And one of the options was ifconfig, and the other option was ipconfig. Well, both of those answers are right. It's just two different platforms. But there was only one answer the system thought was correct. So you got to kind of watch out for stuff like that. As far as them giving you technical questions, let's say they're doing it live. Let's say you're doing it over a virtual session. Don't be afraid to kind of pause and be contemplative. There are body language signals you can give that show I am confident, but I am considering your answer. Learn those. And I'm not going to give you the answer. I'm going to make you do the homework because it's going to make you dig into the rest of the body language stuff as well. Leverage that. Don't feel like you need to come back with a snap answer. And don't feel like you can't ask additional questions. Sometimes I don't know the answer off the top of my head. I will ask additional questions that don't necessarily help me answer their question, but it buys me more time to think it through, and it may give me more keywords to work with to help me kind of figure out what direction they're trying to head in. How do you consume threat intel info to do effective threat hunting? That is for the technical course. So I would say refer to the level 1 class for that. That's kind of outside the hiring parameters. People are generally guarded about the tools they use. What would be a good way to ask? I wouldn't ask. I would actually go through and, like I said, handle it like a red team exercise, passive reconnaissance, and some of your best resources, LinkedIn. What do people brag about they're good at? Indeed and other job sites. What have they tried to hire for in the past? That's what I would do to figure out what tools they're using versus asking as part of the interview process. If I can't find out anything from that, I may ask in generalities as opposed to specific tools. Let's see, check out other job posts. Yep, good advice, absolutely. Job description list, yeah, see, people are getting it. Cool. Awesome, and I think that's it. So Shelby, I apologize, I've run 10 minutes over. Let's see, how do you deal with rejection? Don't take it personally. Not everybody, so like I said, there's a number of things that need to come into alignment here. There's this matching of technical skills, there's matching of culture, there's matching of social skills. And just because you're not in alignment with that organization doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It could be actually a good thing. If they're looking for like cutthroat and money hungry and they felt like you weren't that person, I would have a hard time taking that badly, that they didn't think I was too cutthroat enough, you know? So, you know, brush it off, realize that not everybody's a perfect fit everywhere, just kind of move on from there. Hey, Shelb.
Hello. Yes, and not a problem running over at all. This was an important webcast, and it's good that we answer all the questions involved. I did see someone, Impostora, said, how can you get into contact with the right recruiters on LinkedIn for certain companies/roles? And again, I want to mention Jason Blanchard's live stream that we had talked about during the pre-show banter. I shared the link again as well inside the Discord for everybody. But Jason does 2 live streams a week on how to help find or how to help get a job, how to find the right recruiters for it. So that's definitely something I would go to him and join his live streams for.
And what's kind of cool about the live stream is he will actually do it live. He
Yes.
will go through and say, okay, so, you know, what organization are you looking for? Okay, great. Let me do a screen share. Let me show you how to go through and do that process, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, he doesn't just do like a demo. He'll pick like a
Yep.
specific person who's watching the live stream and help them live during the stream. So it really is cool. Definitely recommend checking that out.
Yeah, he mentioned the like finding a job that 28 other people already posted on and saying, oh, I feel bad for you because you're not going to get it because we are. That's actually like directly out of the live stream. You know, he was going
Yes.
through for somebody on how to go through and, you know, post a job on the site. And, you know, that was kind of his banter as part of going through that process.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Well, as all the attendees already said, thank you, Chris, for the awesome presentation. A very important one, too, because we definitely need more threat hunters out there.
Yep.
I want to remind everybody again, too, if you enjoyed our webcast and want to see more, we do one about every month. Along with that, about once a month, we do a 6-hour free threat hunt training. And you can get, if you subscribe to our mailing list, you'll get notified about all of those, or you can check out our events page that has all the current ones planned up on it right now. And I'm not seeing any more questions come in other than someone saying, can you tell us a little bit about your advanced threat hunt class?
So the advanced threat hunt class builds on the level 1 threat hunt class that we offer for free. So the level 1 class, I kind of do that as kind of an intro to, you know, this isn't, Bill, I did it again. Look at the chat channel. I went to go to slide number 1. Bill and I do that all the time. It's funny. You'll see people like post into Slack, you know, sudo app-y install, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, okay, someone's in the wrong window. No big deal. But our free class is designed to be an intro to threat hunting. So that is, you know, what's the process? Why is the process what it is? What are some of the general things that you're looking for? With the advanced class, it's actually mostly labs, and it's really designed to kind of drive that process home. So an awful lot of the advanced threat hunting class is, hey, here's a PCAP. Tell me what's wrong in there, you know, and how did you figure it out? And we just do that over and over and over again. I'd say maybe 30% of that class is lecture, and the rest of it's hands-on lab time.
Awesome. I'm not seeing any more questions, but I did see Lazy Sprocket said, thanks, I have a small team I work and I work with, and some of them asked about becoming threat hunters. It's the middle of the night for them, so it's good info to be shared later via the recording.
Yep.
And yes, in case anyone didn't know, we have started to live stream all of our webcasts. So if you missed part of this or you want to share it with your colleagues or friends, you can do so now. I've gone ahead and shared the YouTube link in the Discord for everyone, and I'm going to share it in the GoToWebinar in case anyone wasn't able to join us on Discord today.
Hey, real quick, I'd just like to share my favorite comment today in Discord, which was from Hans Hahn, and said, "Us nerds are always looking down at the floor anyways, might as well make use of it and learn how to read feet."
Which is exactly why I teach that first.
And by the way, I love the breakfast test. I love how you shared that story. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Bill, I don't think I ever actually put you through that.
I don't think we ever actually went out on an interview. You showed up at a Linux install fest that I was doing and basically offered me a job. So that was about the only interview we ever had together.
Oh, that's right. You went through the Team Fortress test.
Yes, and as soon as
So
I
when
got a
first
hold of
met
that
Bill-
flamethrower, we were all set.
Yeah, well, when I first met Bill, it was one of these deals where he was such a nice guy, it kind of creeped me out. I couldn't find like anything evil with him, which always kind of made me worried that, you know, he was one of these folks that you read about, oh, he was such a quiet man. I don't know why he took a knife to everybody in the neighborhood. You know, but then sat down, played Team Fortress with Bill, and he was a complete a-hole in the way he played. And it was like, oh, good, he does have a dark side. It just comes out in video games only. That's cool. Yeah, hey, come work here.
Awesome. All
Where
right.
did you get $80 for a tip, Chris?
Yeah.
So when you go in and you ask a server to purposely mess up an order, they're going to think about that from the perspective of this person you want me to mess the order up on isn't going to want to tip me. They may not want to come back to me. You want to make it financially feasible to them. So if you're in a coffee shop or something where their average tip is like $10, to go through and tell them that you're going to give them, you know, $40, $80, somewhere in that range there. Hey, that's a couple hours worth of work. Yeah, okay, I'll go along with this for that. Good question.
Chris, I wanted to just pass along one other quick idea before we close up. Every company that's hiring is trying to solve a problem. You should be able to very clearly understand what that problem is, and you should be able to clearly articulate why you can solve it. If you haven't figured out what that problem is, you will not get the job.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yep, all part of doing your homework. Absolutely.
Well said. Awesome. Well, again, thank you, everybody.
Chris drives up, Bill opens the passenger door, quick get in. Well, Bill was my navvy in some of the rallies. So yeah, that's kind of a true statement. Bill was in the passenger seat when we were going sideways. So
Yes, and I managed to get us lost at one point while we were doing the tire warm-up. Okay.
yeah, it's not a big deal.
Just once then.
The only weird one with you was when we went over the floating bridge. I thought for sure we were going to sink.
Yeah. And this is the post-show
Shelby, I
banter.
can't remember if it was you or your brother that told your teacher, I really like it when my dad makes my window the front of the car. And I had
That was me.
a way to explain that wouldn't sound like I was a bad parent.
Yes.
But I was
yeah,
just thinking, when Bill got in the car, did he have sunglasses and a half pack of cigarettes?
Yeah.
It's dark out, yes.
When
Yeah,
that
actually, I probably did.
when Extreme Paperclip made that comment, it made me think of the scene from Mean Girls, the get in, bish, we're going shopping kind of thing. So I think I'm going to need to make a meme now of that scene, but with Chris and Bill instead.
Oh, awesome.
So,
Oh, that would be great.
yeah, so stay tuned for that. But
Yeah, it's not like there aren't pictures of my old rally cars around, so you get
Yep.
that to work with anyway.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you again, everybody, for joining us for today's webcast. One more time, I'm going to mention Jason's live stream to everybody. So if you are, sorry, trying to find a link. If you would like to attend Jason live stream, he does it on Tuesdays and Fridays, and it's all about helping people find a job. Like we said earlier, he actually will help somebody live during the stream, so it's not like a demo or anything like that. He might actually choose you to help find a job.
Yeah.
Along with that, if you want to learn more about threat hunting in general, make sure you check out our free 6-hour training, along with Chris's other 2 classes that he has on the slide up on the screen right now. And if you feel like anyone would benefit from this webcast, the link is already available to the recording on YouTube. If you are joining us through GoToWebinar, though, then tomorrow at this time, Eastern time, you will receive an email containing your certificate of attendance from this class, and you can usually use those for CPE credits as well. And on that,
one last question I want to answer, Shelby, which is,
okay.
Am I related to Robert Plant? No, he's a sellout. He cut his hair.
Oh, man. Awesome. Well, thank you again, Chris, and thank you everybody for joining us today. And hopefully we will see you in another upcoming webcast.
Later, folks.
Thanks, everybody.